Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, creating a legacy with life insurance, part 5 in our series on life insurance for indemnification, income, and inheritance. Welcome to the 5th segment where we're talking about using life insurance in an inheritance point of view. And this is really huge in planning for me. I really enjoy this. I use life insurance, especially second to die, to take care of kids, grandkids, now even 4 generations, maybe even great grandkids. I look at it to take care of charities. I look at it to maybe even form my own foundation. It just depends on what you're trying to get done. But inheritance is a huge opportunity to use the economic leverage and the tax advantages of life insurance. I'm thinking about multi-generational gifting. Interestingly enough, consider this. With the human longevity, the whole mortality revolution taking us out to life expectancy horizons that we've never even thought about, the odds now are we used to do dynasty trusts built on skipping a generation and going to the 3rd generation. Now we're talking about 4 generations where great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and children are all living in the same time period. Unbelievable. So now we're looking at multi-generational gifting, doing gifts and the kind of tactical planning to move prosperity into our progeny. This is a huge opportunity to use second to die, in my view. Charitable organizations. There are charities that I want to see go forward after I leave this earth. I want charities that I believe in to flourish, and I want to be able to give them something, and nothing can leverage the economic impact with the discounted dollars and the pennies on the dollar that you can use, especially again with second to die or survivorship, because it has such a leverage economic power to it. I think you should look at it. Creating a foundation, more and more people are looking at how can I fund not only a foundation, but maybe let my children or grandchildren, or maybe even great-grandchildren, actually become employees of the foundation. This is a huge area to set up and create something for yourself. You say, I have a specific thing. I've really never seen a charity per se that really addresses the things that I want to address. You could think about creating and you have to go through the IRS applications. And you have to make sure that it's approved. But you could create a foundation that you could fund using the proceeds of second to die. And then estate transfer costs. There's always estate transfer costs. Most people say, Steve, I don't have the $10,500,000 credit problem that the affluent and the rich have. Well, that's true. The first $10.5 million is going to be taken up by the unified credit. And if you don't have that kind of money, you're probably not going to pay estate taxes. But heads up, almost all the states in the union do not ditto or reflect or shadow the federal rate. So some states are very expensive, have punitive estate taxes that are way lower. And so you want to make sure that if you have an estate transfer tax in your state, you want to indemnify that tax by buying pennies on the dollar or discounted dollars with life insurance. That could be the way to go. And also replace charitable gifts. We ran into a client, this is early on in my career, where we actually gave money away to a charity. But the beneficiaries became angry because they said, you just gave $1 million worth of stock to a charity. Now, of course, we did that so that we wouldn't have to pay the capital gain treatment, which was going to be horrendous. So we sent it we gave it to the charity, but we had to replace it because the beneficiary said, you just gave me $1 million of my inheritance to a charity. So we replaced the gift. So feel free, if you say, Steve, I'd like to give right now while I'm living to see the proceeds actually do something in my charity. This could be a great opportunity to do it, but just heads up, if you want to replace that gift, you can do that. Just make sure that you're medically fit, that you and your wife or whoever you're partnering with can actually pay the premium and you have good medical underwriting offers so that it makes good economic sense. Multi-generational gifting again. I can do children. I can do grandchildren. I'm thinking about, wow, my grandchild, I could be a grandfather, a great-grandfather, maybe 5 to 7 years, who knows? And then you're looking at all these generations and how you can move them into prosperity by taking care of what you're doing now. It's kind of like looking at your progeny in the future and helping them fund and get them off to a good beginning in life. Some of the charitable organizations, people always come to me and say, Steve, I don't know who to give to. I wouldn't mind doing something. Well, there are a lot of science nonprofits, people that are doing things in the medical field. They're doing things in astronomy and looking into the universe. There's so many applications for science and research, and they're always looking for good money and good funding. So you might want to look at that. Some people have religious obligations. They want to make sure that their specific understanding of God is propagated throughout the earth as a missionary movement, or to support their local church or their local synagogue. They want to look at those ideas. There are so many different religions and so many people that are so invested in their belief system. This is an excellent opportunity to be able to give in a charitable organization to maybe a religious cause that you feel very strongly about and that you're personally invested in. And then education. There are so many things. So many alumni give back to their educational, their universities, their colleges, because they were really feel obligated and also feel a very strong tie to that, and they want to see that university or college go on into perpetuity. So education can be huge. And it doesn't have to just be college and university. It could be your original high school or your parochial grade school that you went to. And then political. Some people are very political and they love to give to nonprofit political movements. And so they want to make sure that those movements and their brand of politics goes on into the future once they're gone. So there's a ton of political options here that you can look to. And another one is poverty. There are so many charities that work with people who have no money, that are living in poverty, not only here in the U.S., but across the world. And believe you me, there are hundreds of these out there. You want to find out the one that you like, want to investigate, want to do a little research and development here before you go ahead and pick one. But I'm just giving you some categories. These are not all the categories. These are just some of the categories that you can look at. Now, creating a foundation. Here's where the family comes in, because sometimes you want to create something that you say you don't think exists, or if it does exist, you don't think it could do good as job as you and your family can do. So you can actually make a family charity, and you can actually employ your family members in that charity, and they can run it and take care of it and make sure that the heart that you had for this idea or this concept goes forward into their generation, into the succeeding generation. And you can, again, use this as a family employment issue. We have found that people that are really invested in charitable giving, that really like to create a family foundation, and at the same time kind of get 2 for 1 and put a place for some of their family members to help run the foundation, this is a huge issue. And in the community, people like the idea that they're developing a family brand out of this. This family takes care of the community in this regard. I have a community I'm thinking of here in Arizona where that family really enjoys taking care of people that are coming into the United States for the first time. They're legal immigrants, but they're just beginning their life in the United States, and they want to help them in kind of a welcome wagon, if you will, from a charity point of view. Everybody has their own reasons. Everybody has their own expectations and aspects of charitable giving. This is just one of them. Estate transfer costs. Everybody's going to have final expenses. Even if you don't have federal state taxes, you're still going to have final expenses. You know, last medical expense loads, funeral expenses, paying off certain bills, and especially when dad dies before mom. Remember, 87% of the time, the male dies before the female in a marriage. So you'll want to look at final expenses because you don't want to saddle people with extra expenses at your death. You want your death to be celebrated, not one that's looking at all the economic woes because of your departure. So to me, final expense, that's a forever number. That probably should be permanent insurance, not temporary. And if you do it young, you could take care of this issue for the rest of your life and be done with it. I know it's a little extravagant to think in those terms that I'm going to take care of my final expenses when I'm 25, 30. But it's so cheap now, you should look at this and maybe just get it done with. Most of the final expenses that we're looking at are right around 25 grand for funeral costs, final medical, paying off debt. It's just something you should look at. Estate settlement, legal fees. Hey, hopefully we're not going through probate because then you really got fees. But you still have transfer and expense loads of going from one to another without a will and without a trust. So it's important to get in concert a will and a trust that dictate and keep this out of probation and keep your legal costs as low as you possibly can. And then jurisdictional taxes, state taxes. Every state in the union has its own transfer tax. And believe you me, there are some big states in the United States that have very punitive, expensive transfer taxes. And it could be worth your while to look into second to die just for this issue in domestic as well as having a family-owned business. To me, you have to cover off these estate, not for estate taxes, your residential state. And so it makes a big deal difference of where you're going to die. What state are you going to die in? If you have money to protect, you need to start investigating where do you want to live somewhere around the time of your death. That's going to be very important for jurisdictional taxes. And then, of course, inheritance. I want to replace any gifts, any assets I give away. I want to restore any single deposit gifts that I've written a check for. I want to be able to restore annual giving. What if I want to actually put an income system in where it actually continues? Not only do I do a lump sum, but I have a gift in perpetuity that'll actually generate income for the charity. And then principal preservation. Sometimes I had a really good stock pick. I ran it up. I'm going to now take money off the table and save it, and save that money earnings and send the principal on to the next generation. Principal preservation for investing. So when I say life insurance at the beginning, I said it's the greatest financial product ever conceived by the minds of men. I've just shown you many ways it can be used for the benefit of you and the benefit of your progeny forever. I want to thank you for watching our series on life insurance for indemnification, income, and inheritance. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas you've heard on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.